If automation feels overwhelming, I want you to start with one question. What happens the moment someone shows interest in your business and your service offering? Now, if the answer says is it depends, that's where automation should begin. Design a simple response, an acknowledgement, a next step, a follow-up. Doesn't have to be terribly complicated, just enough to keep momentum moving. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Now, when most people hear the word automation, particularly marketing automation, they'll typically picture one thing, and that is autoresponders. Like, you know the type. You fill in a form somewhere and instantly get an email saying, "Hey, thanks for your inquiry. We'll get back to you shortly." Or worse, it's just something on the landing page saying, "We've sent you something that may or may not ever turn up." Now, that's the version of automation that most businesses are familiar with. And whilst that's incredibly useful and creates huge amount of leverage for your business, it's also an incredibly small part of what automation can actually do in your business. Because automation isn't really just about emails. It's about creating momentum in your business. It's about making sure that things continue moving even when you're not actively pushing them. And once you start seeing automation through that lens, you realize that it can quietly remove an enormous amount of effort from how your business can run. Now, I see this all the time. Right? A lot of business owners resist automation to start with. They'll get a CRM and it just becomes a really expensive Google sheet full of contacts that you never look up. They worry about when they start automation that it'll feel impersonal or robotic or overly salesy. But that usually comes from a misunderstanding of what automation actually replaces. And I want to stress this point. Automation doesn't replace relationships and human connection. What it does do is replaces forgetting. It replaces hesitation and replaces the awkward gap between when someone raises their hand and potentially nothing happens for a few days because you're busy. Because if you think about it, if you were to do that, it's actually the least personal experience that a business can create. So automation, when done properly, simply makes sure that relationships that you start keep moving forwards. Now, earlier in this particular series, we talked about founder bottleneck. And one of the biggest bottlenecks that I see in businesses is very simple. If someone shows interest and the next step depends on the founder noticing, such as when an inquiry comes in through your website or a referral, or maybe it's a LinkedIn message. And then what happens, often it's nothing. And it's not because the business owner doesn't care. It's because life gets in the way. Meetings, calls, other work. Maybe your kid's report card from school that isn't really where it could be. And before you realize it, 2 days have passed. Now, automation solves that instantly. The moment someone raises their hand, the system responds. They get acknowledgement. They get clarity on the next step. And they get momentum. Autoresponders are really just the entry point to automation. Because once you start designing systems properly, automation can support almost every stage of the customer journey. For example, when a lead books a call, the system can automatically send confirmation details. It can remind them before the meeting. It can send preparation information. It can even send a short follow-up afterwards. Now, none of that can or should require a lot of manual effort, but it can dramatically improve the experience that a client has. Now, there's a few areas where automation makes a huge difference in most businesses. And the first of those, I think, is in lead follow-up. We know that most leads don't convert immediately. They need time, they need reminders, and they need to see you again. Automation allows you to stay present in someone's world without chasing them manually. And a simple follow-up sequence over a few weeks can dramatically increase the number of conversions and conversations that can happen. A few years back, I remember a client of mine, before we started to do this work, he had a meeting, was asked to send a proposal. Week went past, didn't send it. 2 weeks went past, didn't send it. Started to feel a little bit embarrassed and thought, oh, they're probably gone somewhere else. And then 6 months later, literally bumped into that customer in the supermarket aisle, who then asked, when are you sending over that proposal? The second area I think a lot of people miss is in lead nurturing. Now, a lot of potential clients that are interested but not ready today. Without a system, they sometimes disappear, and automation allows you to stay connected. You can share insights, ideas, stories, and things that will keep the relationship warm until such time as the timing is right. Another client we worked with a number of years back sold shipping container conversions into pop-up cafes. And most people who were interested in doing this kind of thing might have had in their head that it would cost $10,000 or $20,000. When the $250,000 invoice comes in, they're thinking, I'm not disinterested. I've just now got to go and find some more money than I expected initially. The third area, I think, is in reactivating old relationships. And this one really surprises people because businesses have years of contacts, sitting in email lists, in spreadsheets, in CRMs, in social media connections. They represent past inquiries, past clients, old conversations. People who think you did the thing that you did 5 years ago, which is very different from the way you do your business now. And automation allows you to reconnect with those people in a structured way. And often that produces results faster than chasing entirely new leads. Right? I worked with a business some time ago now that believed they had a lead generation problem. They were constantly trying to find new ways to attract prospects, ads, events, networking. But when we looked at their database, we found hundreds of past contacts who had shown interest at some point. They'd just simply never been followed up properly. And so we implemented a simple automated sequence to reconnect with those people. Nothing aggressive, just a thoughtful series of messages checking in and reopening the conversation. And within a few weeks, they had multiple new opportunities in their pipeline, not from new leads, from people that were already in the world. And that's really the power of automation when it's designed well. Here's something that I guess people don't really understand that is really important for you to recognize. Automation isn't about doing less work. It's about allowing you to do the right work in the business. So instead of spending time remembering who to follow up, you spend your time having better conversations. Instead of chasing missed opportunities, you focus on serving the people who are ready. Automation removes the background noise. And when that noise disappears, your clarity improves. Now, I mentioned before that some people still worry that automation makes their business feel less human. But let's think about your own experience as a customer. What feels worse? Thoughtful automated message that arrives immediately, or silence for 3 days when someone tries to remember to reply. So good automation doesn't remove personality. It simply ensures that nobody falls through the cracks. And ironically, that often makes businesses feel more professional and more attentive than less. So if automation feels overwhelming, I want you to start with one question. What happens the moment someone shows interest in your business and your service offering? Now, if the answer is it depends, that's where automation should begin. Design a simple response, an acknowledgement, a next step, a follow-up. Doesn't have to be terribly complicated, just enough to keep momentum moving. Automation, whilst uses technology, isn't really about technology. It's about removing friction from relationships. It ensures that interest turns into conversation, that conversation turns into opportunities, and opportunities turn into clients, and those clients turn into referrals and recommendations without requiring the founder to carry everything in their head. Now, in the next episode, we're going to go and explore something that many businesses overlook entirely, which we've touched on today, and that's the revenue already sitting inside their existing database. Because for most businesses that we work with, the fastest growth doesn't come from new marketing. It comes from reconnecting with the people who already know you. Now, before the next episode, take a moment to look at how your business responds when someone shows interest. Does something happen automatically? Or does it rely on you, or worse, your staff remembering? If you'd like help building systems like that keep your relationships moving, you'll find resources and ways to connect over at winmoreclients.com.au. Until next time, more clients, less effort.